Hey everybody, welcome back. We're going to go through what I'm calling spiritual concept number 3 today. Um, so a human being, let's draw our little human. He's going to be a stick figure. Maybe I can do better, but we get the purpose. Let's give him some hair here. Okay, a person is born and then he's walking through life, and as he goes along, he's seeing problems come at him, right? And it's as if they're coming from in front of him, right? There's all kinds of problems. Let's say bills, relationship problems, um, let's say raising kids, all the normal life stuff, right? Money worries, all the stuff. And so we're all kind of walking along this path, and it seems as if the problems are coming at us, right? Kind of from the front. And it seems like they're all coming from different places. Like this is an issue, this is an issue, this is a separate issue. So we see the world as fragmented. But in actuality, it's not fragmented. Let's draw another guy up here. Instead of these problems coming at us, if we start to understand we're in a general circle called the Creator, right? We're in a system which we're all born, contains the entire universe, all the desires of human beings, every human being, the earth, the planets, the stars, all of it. What we start to see actually is that all of these problems are actually coming from the same source. So they're not actually separate problems. They're all problems coming from the same source. So like in the Bible, it says there's none else besides him. What they're really saying there is that really nothing else exists but the Creator, because the human has a spark of God within him, right? And so although we're carrying around these bodies of creation, the truth is that we're sparks of the Creator. So all of the seeming problems coming at us are coming from one source. And this source is the creative source. Creative source. Okay, so while it looks like all these problems are coming at us from different directions and they're not all related, they're actually all coming from the same place. So as a person stepping along his life here, at each different phase, he's facing more and more challenges, right? So here's a challenge, maybe it's bills, money problems, relationship issues, past trauma, all the stuff all us humans are dealing with. If we begin to see that as coming from one source, which is here, the creative source, and so they're not separate problems, but instead they're one source, one problem acting upon us in the world, most people are trying to solve these problems, right, by facing them head on. So let's give him a face over here. He's looking at the problems. There you go. He's not happy. He's sad. He's got all these problems. Okay, and so it's a never-ending game of like whack-a-mole, right? Let's give him a little hammer. And so we're trying to solve all these problems on each level of life that we reach, and they're seemingly never ending. Now, the purpose of these problems is to elevate us back to this source. This source wants us to realize our oneness with it again. And so the way not to actually waste these problems is each problem that comes, yes, we have to deal with it on the physical plane, but at the same time, let me clear my board here a little. At the same time, if we're not using these problems to go back up to this source, then we're wasting our life. And so, in other words, a problem comes and I address the problem on the physical plane, but I also go back up to this world, right? And how we do that is by matching the vibration of the creative source. So the creative source has certainty, it is good, that does good, and it's pure giving, pure love. And so in our minds, yes, we need to address these problems on the physical plane, but each step we want to go back up by having this thought. Everything that's coming toward me is for my highest good and destiny, and reconnecting with that love above the problems. So it turns out that each step we take, we're rising higher and higher and higher in our consciousness. And so when we do that, we become more like the light. We become, instead of just takers, oh man, these problems are so bad. This is so bad. Why is this happening to me? Instead, we start going back up with this conscious choice to be like the creative source. And in this way, throughout all of our lives, we're elevating our consciousness back to this source, which is where things like love come from, creativity, intelligence, wholeness in general. Wholeness is a good word. And so then through the span of our lives, we're becoming more like this source. So even though we're dealing with the problems on the physical plane, at the same time, we're stair-stepping back up to the creative source in our consciousness and becoming more like this giver, like this creative source. And so when you hear the concept in the old biblical stories of Jacob's ladder, what he was actually doing, what that ladder represented, is the stair-stepping that he did all the way back to a divine unity between creator and creature. And so in that way, we're not wasting our time here on earth. And what actually happens is, let's draw our person again. When we're walking along life's path and doing this stair-stepping, we're becoming more like the creator. And each step we take, higher and higher, if our intention is to give certainty, that's what's happening to me now is for my highest destiny, we go higher and higher up like that. And what begins to change is, because we're now emitting a different frequency to this creative source, back to it, and we are justifying our creator, we're now getting sent down different energy from this creative force because we're mass units energy. So by doing that, we're changing our destiny. For the better. So we're now, through this process, we're changing our destiny for the better. So the road ahead will actually become better and better because we're actually fixing these problems in their spiritual root. And so those same problems are not going to be sent down anymore. And so by doing this, we're actually changing our destiny and our future. If we're just trying to solve the problems on the level of the physical plane, then we're not actually changing anything. We're just fixing the problems over and over, playing whack-a-mole. And so we're actually getting nowhere because we're still vibrating at the same energetic force as the human being, as the creator, the creature who is a receiver. And we want to become like the giver. And so as long as we're in that selfish desire and we're just worried about, oh, I can't suffer anymore, I can't take this anymore, I need to fix the problem, and praying to the creator, please, like, get me out of this jam and out of this mess and end my suffering, we can actually end our own suffering and change our destiny by rising above the problems and becoming more like the creator. And then on this side, instead of more problems, what we get is more love, peace, harmony, good relationships. This is the source of intelligence, creativity, blissful states. And so we change our destiny to become more like this instead of the same old problems and the same old stuff and the same old suffering. We instead get all of these wonderful things because we are matching this wonderful thing up here, right? And so that, I hope, helps give you something to think about. If there's any questions, please let me know, and
Hey
I'll be
everybody.
back with another lesson.
I felt like it was necessary to add some commentary to the board explanation because it all sounds very easy and technical when it's on the board. But the reality is, when these problems come to us and we're faced with these challenges, it is actually so hard to remember this lofty spiritual stuff because the problems are so tangible and we're facing them like waves that just won't let us paddle out through the ocean to get out to the outside and surf our way in. And so when these problems come, they seem so real. And in this illusory world, the physical world is the only thing that feels real to us. It is the testing ground. And that's what makes it the testing ground, is that it seems so real. And oftentimes things are so unfair that happen to us. And so I don't want to make light of the situation, but experience teaches you over time that this is another test. It's time to rise higher. This is another test. It's time to rise higher. And so you get used to that and you even start to anticipate it. And it's not that the problems completely go away, but instead you start living up here. So you start seeing these problems for what they are, is part of the test. But that is not to make light of the very real dark nights of the soul that we all face. Some of the challenges that people face, all of us at our different levels on our particular soul paths, are so intense and they seem so unfair. And a lot of time they are super unfair. And as we know, the people that often are the people that are supposed to love us the most actually are the ones that hurt us the most. But that's because they too are carrying around this earthly, physical plane baggage of the ego. And if you could rise above that and see what their souls are really intending, they're all sent from above as assistants to help us rise to that higher level. And if you could strip away the earthly bodies, you could see that these souls actually do completely love you and they're assisting you to become one with the light of the Creator again. They want the best for you. Now, that doesn't mean that we tolerate abusive behavior, that kind of thing. Of course, we have to respond to the problems in this physical world. Sometimes that means setting boundaries, and that's the way our soul needs to grow. But to say that it's easy is really not fair. But it becomes easier over time because you start to understand that all of these problems are sent by the light of the Creator. And when those problems come, again, it's like another wave. And you say to yourself, I have complete certainty that what is happening now is for my highest good and destiny. And you connect to that source of love above, and you start bringing down that energy. And the more you go through that refinement process, the more you become like that light above. You may need boundaries, but still you stay in that place where you are in a place of love, and you understand that all of these souls are help from above. And so I just felt it necessary to add this little commentary to add some depth to what we did on the board. So I'll talk to you soon.